Sarah and Ben had always dreamed of owning a Victorian-style home. The charm, the history, the potential for renovation, it all seemed just perfect. So, when they stumbled upon the old, dilapidated house on Willow Street, they knew they had found it. The house was a sight to behold, with its intricate carvings, stained glass windows, and sprawling gardens. It was clear that it had once been a grand residence, but years of neglect had taken their toll. Despite the obvious repairs needed, Sarah and Ben were captivated by the house's potential. Their best friend Alex had decided to move into the old house and help with the renovations. The first few weeks were filled with excitement as they settled into their new home. They spent countless hours exploring the house's nooks and crannies, uncovering hidden treasures and imagining the lives of those who had come before them. But as the weeks turned into months, a sense of unease began to creep into their lives. Strange noises echoed through the house, as if footsteps were pacing from room to room. Shadows seemed to dance across the walls, morphing into grotesque shapes that sent chills down their spines. Sarah, in particular, was affected. She began to feel unwell, her skin pale and her body weak. Nightmares plagued her, and she often woke up drenched in sweat, her heart pounding in her chest. One night, as Sarah lay in bed, she heard a faint scratching sound coming from the hallway. She sat up, her eyes wide with fear, and listened intently. The scratching grew louder, followed by the sound of footsteps approaching her bed. A cold draft swept through the room, and Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She could see faint, glowing eyes in the darkness at the end of the bed, but before she could make out any details, the eyes dimmed and disappeared. Fear gripped Sarah as she realized she wasn't alone. She shook Ben awake, her voice trembling. "There's something in here," she whispered. Ben tried to reassure Sarah that it was just her imagination, but she was convinced that something sinister was lurking within the walls of their home. As the months went by, the strange occurrences became more frequent and more terrifying. Sarah's health continued to deteriorate, and she began to withdraw from the world around her. Desperate for answers, Ben contacted a local paranormal team. The team arrived at the house and began to set up various devices to detect any paranormal activity. The house seemed to respond to the team's presence. The lights flickered, doors slammed shut, and an oppressive silence descended upon the rooms. The team members felt a sense of dread, as if they were being watched by something evil. After conducting a thorough investigation, they concluded that the house was possessed by a demonic spirit. The entity was being drawn to the fear within the house. Days after the investigation, the house seemed to change. The once warm and inviting atmosphere turned cold and oppressive. The colors faded, and the house seemed to grow darker and more sinister. Ben approached the surrounding neighbors, who explained they had heard the legends of the house being haunted and reported feeling an eerie presence, but had never experienced anything firsthand. Ben realized he had to get Sarah out of the house before it was too late. He packed their belongings and prepared to move out. Alex, however, was reluctant to go. He was drawn to the mystery and the thrill of the unknown, and he refused to believe that the house was truly dangerous. Ben and Sarah tried to convince Alex to leave with them, but he was adamant. He insisted that he would stay and face whatever was haunting the house. In the end, they had no choice but to leave him behind. As they drove away from the house, they looked back at the old Victorian mansion, a sense of dread, sadness, and broken dreams filling their hearts. Alex remained in the house alone. He tried to ignore the strange occurrences, but his building fear was becoming too much for him to bear. He spent his days locked up in his room, refusing to leave the house or interact with anyone. The neighbors watched with concern, contacting Ben and Sarah about Alex's deteriorating health that mirrored Sarah's decline. To this day, the fate of Alex and the haunted Victorian house remains a mystery. Some say that he was consumed by the demonic spirit, forever trapped within the walls of the house. Others believe that he simply disappeared, leaving no trace behind. Alex is registered as a missing person, but his whereabouts and fate still remain unknown. One thing is certain, the house continues to stand, a silent sentinel on the quiet street, a reminder of the dark forces that can lurk within the shadows of our world. The end. Thank you for watching.